I just figured out that my cigar was in a wrapper.
That would explain why you're having such challenges
And
there.
I was wondering why the cigar wasn't staying lit, and I feel like a fucking idiot.
That's okay. You can always edit that part out.
Why would I edit that part? I got so many listeners going, yeah, Dylan, we already knew you were a fucking idiot. Because I read that review you did on Empire Records.
Well, that was a questionable decision, I have to admit.
Hello and welcome to the Super 70 Podcast. Special report, Bruce Willis Celebration. Despite the heavy editing I had to do last time, I went back to Dave's place with my recording equipment and mic'd up his back porch again. We seemed to catch Intercontinental Airport on an off night, and the neighbor's dog seemed to be on melatonin, and Dave and I managed to show one of our favorite actors some respect. Join us, please, as we go through the impressive career of Walter Bruce Willis, American Wunderkind, who managed to turn his television career into an impressive melee into action, comedy, and dare I say, art? Aphasia is an inability to comprehend or formulate language because of damage to specific brain regions. You can donate to help patients with aphasia at www.aphasia.org. That's APHASIA.org. Thank you. Walter Bruce Willis.
His first name is Walter?
His first name is Walter.
I guess I know why he goes by Bruce.
Wikipedia cannot be wrong.
No, that is true.
Now, first we have to say that we're very grieved at hearing the horrible news that he has the onset of memory dementia.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate situation.
And since as long as I can remember TV, he's always been there. Apparently he was in The Verdict. I don't remember that at all.
Well, he was a courtroom observer.
Okay. I, of course, remember him from Moonlighting. I watched every episode of Moonlighting there was.
I think that's certainly the first time I noticed him.
And I did see The Blind Date in theater.
I know I saw Blind Date on videotape after Die Hard.
Do you remember anything from Blind Date?
Kim Basinger, right?
Yes.
Worst date ever, correct?
Yes. But
I remember the poster probably more than I remember the movie for some reason.
The one that got me, the one that had me in stitches and that I can't get out of my head, is the opening shot is like, 3.5, 4 minutes.
Okay.
And it's him getting up in the morning and running around his apartment, and he's late for work. And the radio comes on because he's got a radio alarm clock. Remember those?
I do.
And there's an ad on the radio for the James Brown alarm clock. And it just goes, ow, 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 ow. And it goes on for like a minute. And he's running around his apartment trying to get shit on. And
And that would get you going in the morning.
That'll get you going. James Brown will get you going.
That is the hardest working alarm clock.
That and a few lines of cocaine.
Well, there you go.
But I thought it was a mediocre movie, but I did go see it because of Moonlighting.
Did you actually see it in the theater?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Went with my mother, yeah.
Yeah.
And I knew who he was, but he was David Addison. Everybody knew David Addison. And he was just had that quick wit.
Oh, yeah. No, he was he was a force of nature at that time, especially.
So, in The First Deadly Sin, apparently was his first movie. I've seen that, too.
I don't think I've seen that.
That's Frank Sinatra.
I know I've not seen that then.
And it's based on a book by Lawrence Sanders. I read a lot of Lawrence Sanders when I was a kid.
Okay, that's why it sounds vaguely familiar. Probably because I'm aware of the book, jacket or something.
Yeah, that's right. And he, The First Deadly Sin, the Second Commandment, and all that. But Lawrence Anders also wrote the Anderson tapes,
right,
with Sean Connery, which is an excellent movie, a great book. Blind Date is his third film, and then Sunset, which was a flop, which was about him and James Garner playing Tom Mix and Wyatt Earp.
Wyatt Earp, yeah,
making their first movie about the gunfight of the OK Corral. Again, a flop. It's almost unwatchable.
And was that a movie or was that an HBO movie?
Yeah, it was a movie.
Okay.
Yeah. But then, of course, the big one.
In Country. Oh, no, wait. Die Hard.
Do you want to talk about In Country first?
Oh, no. I mean, I could spend hours, but your audience would shut off if they haven't already, so don't need that.
I remember reading an interview Bruce Willis did for Playboy magazine sometime in the mid-'90s.
So you actually read it for the articles?
Yes. Well,
okay.
I read every single Playboy. Maybe I didn't read it cover to cover, but I read every single Playboy that I was lucky enough to get my hands on. My mother actually, for my 18th birthday, gave me a subscription to Playboy for a year. And much to her chagrin, I renewed it.
Well, yes. I mean, can't believe she didn't see that one coming, so to speak.
So, anyway, in the interview, they talked about a lot. It was in the late 90s, but he talked about how he was the first actor to get $5 million for a movie. It was for Die Hard.
Well, no, that's actually kind of surprising when you think about that. Because even at that point, there was not a whole lot of faith that would work out, at least as my memory, in the industry trades, if you will, which I was reading apparently when I was 17.
That's right.
Because there was no internet.
No, but it was, and I don't know how McTiernan pulled that off.
No.
But he somehow convinced him, like, this guy is a star, and you're going to treat him like a star. And
the biggest star, apparently.
If you want him to walk away from a TV series, then you're going to have to pay him $5 million. And it was a huge leap, and everybody thought it was crazy until Die Hard came out, and everyone said that was a brilliant move.
Yes.
I've got a Cohiba going for our audience wondering what that was. All right, so the cultural impact of Die Hard, and we had an episode, I think, we talked last year.
Yeah, we spoke about it. We were in the same, very possibly in the same theater, potentially even at the same screening.
Right.
When we saw that.
Very, very possible.
Right.
The Cineplex Odeon on Augusta and Westheimer.
Yep. And that was an unexpected shock.
The movie or the fact that we might have
the movie. Screen? No, definitely the movie. Definitely the movie.
I could not foresee how something was that entertaining for every minute of its 1 hour and 55 minutes and whatever.
Pretty universally too.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, you don't find someone who says, "Yeah, when they open the safe, I'm just not." I lost it.
There's not a lot of people that I've run across, at least. Die Hard, kind of sucked.
When the double disc DVD came out on the bonus edition, there's a fantastic. I can't remember the name of the cinematographer. I'm not going to look it up.
Jan de Bont.
Jan de Bont was. You're right. You're right. Another evidence of a skilled craftsman in that in the production of that film. He was actually, they put together a short little scene, and it's when Gruber and the technician is walking down a hallway. They turn right, they turn left, and then they open up to the vault.
Yes,
it's it's a one shot. It's only I think it's maybe 90 seconds of screen time or something. But they showed it in 16:9. And then they showed it in the 4:3 pan and scan.
Right, that has to be pretty brutal. I don't know if I've ever seen it in that format.
And they kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Jan de Bont was going, "This is why pan and scan sucks.
Sure, it's bad."
And when I taught as a teacher's assistant at the University of Houston, and one time the professor could not make it to class and asked me to fill in, and I'd been involved in the curriculum, so I went and said, "Yeah, I can do that. It's not a problem." And one of the things I just squeezed in was that little 3.5-minute bonus scene, and this is why pan and scan sucks.
Right.
There were people in the class that didn't even know what pan and scan was.
Well, sure. At that point, it makes sense.
And this was 2001 or maybe 2002, and there were people that.
Well, it couldn't have been. I guess it could have been. When was the advent of DVD?
Late 90s.
Was it late 90s? Okay.
You and I were having a fantastic argument about DVD and DivX.
Back in the
Not
day.
an argument, a discussion.
Right.
Like I went to. This is an aside. We'll get back to Bruce Willis, I promise, but I cannot pass up this story. DVD had come out. Everyone was saying this is the future, and you and I were resistant because we were like Laserdisc people.
Right.
And I had very few Laserdiscs, and I had no player because I couldn't afford one. But I knew enough to, like, when I saw them cheap, I grabbed them. And then DVD came out, and we were both like, it might be the future. I don't know.
It seemed hard to believe, but primarily because Laserdisc was such a niche at the time.
Right.
And so it's like, well, what's in their niche product? Product,
Yeah.
rather.
Well, there was also, like, 1 or 2 years before that, they tried the mini disc players in the cars.
Right, and those were a magnificent failure.
Yeah, the cartridges with the little and I just didn't see. Who knew? I mean, I thought DVD was going to go that way, but so I went to Circuit City, where circuits are state of the art, and where the fuck are those now? And there were racks upon racks upon racks of Laserdiscs and new DVDs, and then they had DVD players, which were ungodly expensive, like $350, $450.
Back when that meant something.
Yeah, and I mean now you can get a Sony Blu-ray player for like $80 or something.
You can probably get a 4K for $120.
Yeah, right, exactly, and Wi-Fi enabled, smart, and all of that. But so anyway, on the other side of the aisle, there was this DivX, DIVX. And I asked the guy, what is that? And I know that you've heard this story before because we had the conversation when it happened.
Right.
And we talked about it years later, but I'm repeating it just for the benefit of the audience. I said, what is that? And the store clerk said, well, that's DivX. That's the competitor to DVD. Instantly, I was interested because the DVDs were marked like $20, $25, and the DivXs were marked like $6.
So, financially very attractive.
Instantly, I was like, tell me more about this $6 competitor.
Right.
And he said, well, what you do is you hook this up to your modem. And, of course, then it was like, what's a modem? I got 97. What's a modem?
14.4.
Yeah. Yes. And, okay. And so then you buy the disc and you put it in, and it connects with the studio or whoever you're leasing the movie. Well, lease the movie from. What are you talking about? I just bought this movie for $6. No. You've got to pay like another $1 or $2 to watch it at home. After you've bought the disc for $6. Like, who the fuck is going to do that? And I have never met anybody who bought one. Now, someone must have.
Well, sure. I mean, we all knew people who bought Beta, right?
Right.
We all knew people who had HD DVD as opposed to Blu-ray.
Yeah, yes.
But I think I actually had one HD DVD.
My Star Trek collection is entirely in HD DVD.
Of course, the funny thing is, if you think about it, is now, to a certain degree, everybody has DivX. Because that's what you're getting these days, is you're leasing a movie, you don't own it anymore, it's all streaming, subject to the whims of the studios, to whether they stay available or not, it is not for you to control.
This is very true.
So to a certain degree, maybe it won.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to create sympathy for a multi-billion-dollar industry, but the industry has changed so much just in our lifetimes.
Oh, yeah.
And if you think, like, there was
It's changed twice.
Yes.
At least. Much more than that, I'm sure.
And there was a 50-year period in Hollywood where nothing changed.
Right.
Absolutely fucking nothing, except for who owned the theaters. And that was an enormous court case and blah, 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 blah. But, the idea of how you went to go see a movie basically didn't change. Even when television came out, it was slow to pick up, and it took a good 10 years for it to have a negative impact. And sure, it affected screening,
Right, it was a significant threat.
Right.
Enough for Hollywood to actually change.
Yeah. And Hollywood did change. And it was these people like Sid Sheinberg and the head of Universal Studios. Lynn Wasserman and people like that who were already like very aged, very old. Like they were in their late 60s and 70s when they were making these decisions to change. It could not have been easy. And the 70s was remarkably poor in terms of dollar amount per film.
Well, at least the first half, I guess.
Yeah, well, the late 60s to the early 70s, I would say. Like The Godfather was famously a very cheap production compared to what it would have been.
Oh, you're talking about from a budget perspective, as opposed
exactly.
to gross revenue. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
misunderstood.
I mean, even Jaws, like the production of Jaws was
relatively speaking.
Right. I mean, that was over schedule and over budget, but it was still cheaper than a lot of the other movies that Universal was doing just a few years before.
It was a cheap, schlocky B movie.
Right. And I remember George Lucas saying Star Wars was like a $10 million movie, and normally that budget would be $20 or $30 million. Right, but they just did not have. Nobody had that kind of cash,
and they sure didn't have the faith.
Certainly with Star Wars, they didn't. Yes, and then of course in the '80s, you had another industry change with the threat of VHS. VHS is going from like $150 to actually purchase a movie.
Right, that took a long time.
It did. Yeah,
I mean, you could not. I can't remember what the first real release was that made it affordable. But I remember it was a pretty exciting time because then the floodgates opened.
Right.
But unlike streaming, to a large degree, VHS and its progeny since then really kind of enhanced the movie experience. You went to go see the movie, right, and then you would purchase it because you liked it so much.
Right.
Or you went to the Blockbuster. We all miss those tremendously, frankly. And you rented it, and even then, you probably didn't buy that, but you always bought the ones that you saw in the theater. Well, you didn't always buy the ones you saw in the theater, but the ones you bought, you'd seen in the theater, generally speaking.
Well, see, so that's another industry change that on the distribution side that happened, because when I was a kid, these video rental stores, they were mom and pop shops.
Right.
Or the Magnavox store where you went and bought your TV, they had a section that was
cordoned off. Yeah.
That's where I rented Blade Runner for the first time in 1982 or 1983 or whenever it was, right? And then, of course, I guess even when I was in high school in the early 90s,
probably
there was
a pan and scan on that one, wasn't it?
Well, you know it. Yeah, and it looked like shit, and it was still we just thought it was amazing.
It was the best, yeah.
And then, of course, even when I was in high school, there was a mom and pop shop that had the saloon doors in the back for the
for the adults,
for the adult section.
Yeah, where people did taxes and stuff.
Yeah, you could say that. And then it was sometime in the early to mid '90s when the first Blockbuster showed up, and that was the first evidence that franchises and chains were the distribution was being streamlined.
Right.
And then the competitor, Hollywood Video, which took off like a fucking rocket.
Oh, it sure did. And actually, in some regards, I remember it being a preferable place. Just Blockbuster spread like.
Well, they guaranteed you, like on a new release, they guaranteed you a copy, or your next rental was free.
It was free, right?
So if you had that problem getting Eraser, just to pull something out of your hat, then the next time you wanted Eraser, it was free.
Yeah, if you wanted Vanessa Williams right there in your TV and out of your Playboy, it was there.
I particularly didn't like that movie, but
I kind of dug it.
Really?
Yeah.
Eraser?
Oh, I think there's probably only one or two Schwarzenegger flicks that I don't have some degree of fondness for.
Kindergarten Cop?
Love it.
Stop.
Nah, it's a great flick.
Okay.
Well, okay, now let me take that back. Not a great flick. It entertained me.
I love Red Heat.
See, that's one of the ones that I could do without.
Really?
Yeah.
Jim Belushi and...
Yeah, the Lesser Belushi brother.
That's unfair.
But it's true.
That's unkind.
That one was not one of my...
He's running a cannabis farm in Northern California. I know that shocks you.
He's running what again?
A cannabis farm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And he's apparently... And it's the brand... It's Belushi Farms.
I'm sure he's doing very well.
Yeah.
It's obvious. But aside from Thief, I don't have much use for Jim Belushi's filmography.
Come on.
I'm just saying. See, what are the Schwarzenegger flicks I don't like? That'd be tough, actually. At least to have some degree. Oh, Conan the Destroyer. Okay, I didn't like that one.
Yeah, but I guess... So after the franchising or the corporatization or the mainlining of the distribution, the next big step for the film industry change would be streaming. I remember in 2011 maybe it was 2012. Somebody told me, you got an Xbox 360? And I said, like everybody else, yes, I sure do. Well, you can download the Netflix app, and then you can log in and watch a limited amount of movies.
You're like, I have no idea what you're
like,
talking about.
What are you? That's crazy.
Right.
And I remember the first time I logged into it, and I thought, holy fuck. And I had to be at least 3 years behind everybody else.
Oh, certainly.
By the time I found out about it, people had been able to do that for years.
Yeah. So, do you still do the Netflix mail-in, or have
I do?
Okay, I didn't know if they were still doing that, but I remember recently, 9 months ago, you said you were, and I just didn't know if it was still available.
Yeah, and it's only like another $3 or $4 a month or something, and it's 2 movies a month unlimited.
Okay.
And before the recent like post office fuck up, I was still getting like 2 a week. And so 8 a month or something for like another $3 or $4. Like, that's totally worth it for me.
But there are, primarily for things you couldn't get on their streaming service.
Yeah, their library is huge. Yeah, and it's DVD.com. And so what I find so funny about this is I remember very specifically how Netflix had the streaming side. The streaming was like a minority of the DVD mail-in service.
Yeah, it was certainly something that very few people engaged in.
Right. And then it started to grow and grow and grow. And then Netflix said, okay, we're going to divide these business models. And you're going to, it was like Flickster. Flickster is going to be the streaming side.
Remember that.
And then the DVD is going to be Netflix.
Okay.
And then you're going to have to pay an additional, like $8 a month for the streaming service. And it was something like a quarter of Netflix subscribers stopped within the next month. It was a catastrophic decision. And Netflix had a crisis meeting, and they reversed their decision. And they came back and said, scratch that, like Willy Wonka, go back, do it all over again. We're not doing that. There's not going to be a difference between the DVD service and the streaming. And everyone said, oh, and a good portion of the people who canceled their subscription
re-engaged.
Right. And that wound up being saving Netflix for the moment. But what we have now, 10 years after that debacle, is exactly what Netflix wanted. Their DVD service is completely separate from their streaming platform.
Right.
But their DVD service is still a huge moneymaker. I read an article probably about, I don't know, a year or two ago, and they were still saying, like, worldwide, there's still like 30 million people doing the mail-in service.
Which, that's a lot of people, but it seems very plausible. Anybody over the age of 60, it seems very plausible for sure.
Right.
And that's a lot of folks.
And I don't see that service going away, even as, like, every time I go to Best Buy, that rack is getting smaller.
It's kind of, actually went there today. It was, it's pretty distressing. But.
So, back to Bruce Willis, now that we did that full circle, and back to Die Hard. Absolutely stellar movie, absolutely stellar performance, stellar directing. I was interested in John McTiernan forever. I still would go give him the time of day, even after that catastrophe he directed.
What was
the remake of Rollerball?
Oh, that was brutal. I did see that. And that was disappointing because they promised it being. I think we may have had this discussion. I
think that we did a couple of years ago.
It was supposed to be a hard R,
right? And Rebecca Romaine Stamos was in it. It was going to be like full frontal nudity, and the dude from Sliders was going to show his dick or something. Not dude from Sliders. That's Jerry O'Connell.
That's Rebecca Romaine's husband now.
Jerry O'Connell?
Yeah.
She left John Stamos for Jerry O'Connell?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, she's a Sliders fan, apparently.
The kid from Stand By Me.
Yeah. The one from Sliders.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
The same kid, yeah.
Same guy.
No, you're thinking of Chris Klein.
I am, yeah. So he was the dude from American Pie.
Correct.
We did have this conversation.
I thought so.
Sorry for our listeners for my slow uptake. But, regardless.
But it was a genre-shifting event. I mean, it was not dissimilar to what Nirvana did to rock music at the time. It's like everything changed post-Die Hard, and like Nirvana, it was pretty much a whole bunch of, okay, find me the next Nirvana, and you saw Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard on a road, Die Hard on a et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
it's hard to fathom Michael Bay's career without a Die Hard.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Even though it's hard to really, for me to immediately connect the two, but you're right. I mean, it definitely shifted to probably.
I mean, even
where he is
Mission
now.
Impossible. Mission Impossible's like 6-7 years old, and that's an attempt at a Die Hard.
Correct.
In Country. Now that we finally got around.
I do remember that movie existing, but didn't. And that's the thing. Looking through his filmography, it is a shockingly high volume of movies with a shockingly low batting percentage.
Yeah, I
frankly.
mean, right when he jumps off. I mean, Blind Date is 1 year, right? 1987. But then he's got 2 in '88. He's got 2 in '89. He's got 1, 2, 3 in 1990, including that fucking disaster, The Bonfire of the Vanities.
Right, which is funny because it's 2 years after Die Hard, and I remember Bonfire of the Vanities being. I mean, he was absolutely a huge part of the campaign.
Yes.
And if you look at it post Die Hard, it was In Country, Look Who's Talking, Die Hard 2, and Look Who's Talking 2.
Yeah.
But he was definitely considered one of the most bankable movie stars on the planet. And really, I guess 3 of those, man, heck, maybe all 4 with Luke Who's Talking 2. It's hard to imagine these days how popular.
Those movies were extremely popular with Kirstie Alley, who a lot of people look at as batshit crazy now.
John
Travolta, but
it's baffling.
It is, but you remember, like he just had an ADR. He was the voice of the kid. So what did he do? 2 weeks on that?
Yeah, maybe 3.
Yeah, and got his $50,000 or whatever.
It worked out fine for him.
Yeah,
but he was definitely associated with it.
And by the way, if anyone's interested, going back to one of my categories, which is from another podcast, there's a great podcast from Turner Classic Movies, TCM, and you can find them on Twitter at TCM for as long as they're on Twitter, since a lot of people are jumping ship right now.
Yeah, you're talking about the TCM
podcast, which was hosted. Several episodes were hosted by Bing Mankiewicz, and I'm trying to remember the name of the podcast, but it's called The Plot Thickens. And they did their first season was actually on Peter Bogdanovich, which shortly before he passed away last January. And then their second season was on The Bonfire of the Vanities. And there was a reporter who actually was on set pretty much, I mean, it's 80% of the production schedule in New York and Los Angeles. And she wrote a book on it. And she actually had audio tape of conversations with Bruce Willis and Melanie Griffith and Tom Hanks. And
yeah, it was pretty engrossing.
It was. Did you listen to it?
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing. I know. Pretty sure I read the book back when.
Yeah, Tom Wolfe.
Yeah. No. Well, I know I read the actual.
Oh, the reporter's book.
You're right.
Yeah.
I believe I read her book, which I can't. I'm blanking on the name.
Yeah,
of right now.
it was the
Devil's
name of
Candy.
Yes, same name of the podcast.
But yeah.
Yeah, and after listening to that, I had a lot more empathy for what was going on, particularly with De Palma. But the movie is just such a nightmare.
It's not a good flick.
And then you follow that up with Mortal Thoughts, Bomb, Hudson Hawk.
But at least he was with his wife.
Yes, that's true.
Hudson Hawk.
Yeah, Bomb. Billy Bathgate, Bomb. The Last Boy Scout, Bomb.
Well, was it a bomb or was it just financially disappointing?
What's the difference between a bomb?
Well, the difference between it is, if you make your money back, right, or if you make a profit of, let's say, 20%, I wouldn't see how that would be qualified as a bomb. You didn't lose money. And I think it definitely made its budget back.
I don't think we have the time and space in the podcast right now to go deep dive into that.
No, I don't think so either. But
my impression that it was a bomb, and my impression was most people can't believe that film was a bomb because it is so damn good,
or that it even exists because it is. It's a piece of work.
It's amazing. Tony Scott.
Oh, agreed. It's way entertaining. So it actually has a worldwide gross of $114.5 million.
How much?
114.5. Domestic.
So the budget on that was $30-40 million.
Well, that's what I was actually taking a look to see what it was, but
it has to be.
The U.S. and Canada was 60.
Is it already on Box Office Mojo?
No, this is Wikipedia, so it must be true. Kind of probably where I got my information on the other topic, which has been since deleted. But I don't actually see the budget here on this article, but allegedly that's how much it
Well,
made.
I mean, if that's the case, then yeah, it made money back, and it probably did not make as much as it was expected to make.
And that's why I was wondering if it was. I mean, this is semantics, right?
Yeah, but if you watch, and I just saw this last year, and I have to say, as far as the story and the production, like this is Die Hard in L.A.
Yeah,
I mean,
after
Die
a
Hard
lot
was,
more whiskeys.
Yeah, I mean, The Last Boy Scout's a fantastic film. Like, maybe it's not Die Hard, but it's 90% of Die Hard. I mean, Halle Berry, Damon Wayans.
It's really entertaining, right? I don't think it's near Die Hard from a quality standpoint.
Really?
No, it's not even close. But that doesn't mean much. You know, it's
if you like it, you like it.
You like it, and just because something's not near as good doesn't mean it sucks. Because it certainly doesn't suck, at least not to me. But it was I believe that it was considered a disappointment.
Right.
Or a bomb.
There's not much of Tony Scott that I don't. I mean, Runaway Train, his last movie. People are like, I'm not going to go see a movie about a train. It was brilliant.
It's Tony Scott.
Yeah, but that one, the remake he did, Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3.
That I didn't say.
That was dog shit. I mean, that might be his only bad movie. Anyway, but even the production company he had with his brother, Scott Free. I get excited every time I see that logo. I'm like, oh yeah, the Scott brothers are into this. This is going to be good.
Right.
And generally it is. They did like a 10-part miniseries on the Pillars of the Earth.
Okay.
The famous book by whatever the author is. I can't remember the author.
That one I don't know at all.
It's about building a cathedral in the 1300s or something, and it was one of these things that we can't make a movie out of it because it's so long. But the BBC, not the BBC, the CBS or somebody made like a 13-part series out of it. It was great, and it was Scott Free who did it. Okay.
Then the player. You can't give him too much credit, although it's a fantastic flick.
What is up with Death Becomes Her?
That's great.
I saw that in the theater too, and I missed.
I did too. Oh, I thought that was a tremendous satire. You didn't like that, or it doesn't do much for you?
It didn't do much for me, but I do have to say that I remember his character in that quite well.
I do too. I remember. I saw it in the early months of the pandemic again, probably for the first time since the theater. And, yeah, it still holds up in my opinion. I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought that a lot of the shots by Zemeckis were really... Of course, Zemeckis is...
Oh, my God, I forgot that was Zemeckis.
He's a pretty good filmmaker before it went full-on CGI replacement of people to weirdness.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty mean-spirited, dark flick. It's a pretty good satire and not like a gentle one of Hollywood and the beauty culture. So I liked it quite a bit, and I completely forgot about
Goldie Hawn.
No, I can't forget Goldie Hawn.
Bette Midler.
No, she's not in it. Oh, what's her name? Blue Velvet. David Lynch.
Isabella Rossellini.
Rossellini. Yes, and how she's darn near nude throughout a high percentage of her scenes, and I completely forgot about that.
Oh, and she's like playing like a witch or something.
Yeah, she's the one who's granting the...
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, see, ironically, that's the part I'm like, oh, that...
Everybody fucking remember when Isabella Rossellini was full of nude. You're talking about Death Becomes Her. Yes, I saw that
Or
scene.
you weirdo, you're talking about that scene in Blue Velvet.
She was like dating Martin Scorsese at the time or something?
I think she was dating Lynch.
Lynch. Mm-hmm. She pops up in, I don't remember, Alias or something for a season or two that's good. But anyway, like I appreciated his character.
And I think that really did a lot to rehabilitate his image as an actor.
Yeah.
Because, he was very much against any of the previous roles he had taken.
It was, and I was going to bring this up, that a lot of people, when they think of Bruce Willis, they think of Die Hard, they think of The Last Boy Scout, they think of these huge franchises.
These large totemic
But they don't
flicks.
think of Death Becomes Her or that great attempt he made at Breakfast at Champions, which nobody saw and was kind of disappointing, but nobody comes out and says, yeah, I hated it. Because it is seen as this like valiant, noble effort of him to, really attach to Vonnegut, which is that's one of the problems everyone has with Vonnegut is it's very unfilmable.
Right.
And this is not a guy like, yes, he was in Pulp Fiction that next year, But this is not a guy who doesn't care about art, that only cashes in. That
No,
only
it's
takes paychecks. He does try. You know?
Yeah, it's an interesting combination because for obvious reasons he was perceived as sleepwalking through the past, probably 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And in retrospect, because it was information we just didn't have at the time, it was a bunch of, I don't know what's going on. I guess he just desperately needs the money.
Yeah.
But before then, it was a strange combination of, okay, well, I don't know why he's in this. And then, he performed quite well.
Yeah.
And took some interesting chances. So I'm sure we'll see more of those as we go through this.
Yeah, now I have to bring this up in 1993, Loaded Weapon 1, which I just saw last week.
Which I don't think I've ever seen.
Oh, my God. That was way better than I thought it was going to be.
I know. I'm Estevez and
Samuel Jackson and Whoopi Goldberg.
And he plays John McClane?
Yes. Yeah. So I've got to tell you about this because when you watch it, you're going to see this a mile away.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not spoiling anything for you, but Estevez plays the crazy cop from Lethal Weapon. He's even got
He's Mel Gibson.
He's Mel Gibson. He's got the mullet. And it's got this funny. He's walking into his trailer on the beach. Right from
straight from Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon 2. Yeah.
1 and 2, I think.
Well, yeah, in 1, but it's on a different beach in 2.
Oh, I believe you.
And if you look at it on the beach in 2, like in Loaded Weapon 1, it looks. By the way, there is no Loaded Weapon 2.
Yes.
But it's kind of like History of the World Part 1. There is no History of the World Part 2. But if you look at it, I swear it's like they used the same establishing shot from Lethal Weapon 2. So, and the funny thing is, cut to Estevez walking into his trailer, and it's like it looks like a suburban home in Pasadena, California. It's fucking huge inside.
Yeah, he lives in a TARDIS.
So there's, yeah. And so anyway, helicopters come to shoot it up, just like in Lethal Weapon 2.
Right.
And chaos ensues. Everything's blown up, and it's this ungodly amount. It actually reminds me of the cutscene from RoboCop of the guy getting pumped by Ed 209 on the table, and then the inserted footage of he just keeps getting shot and flopping on that. Like, it just goes on ad nauseum. And then it's all over, and the helicopter's hovering, making sure Estevez is dead. You never see Estevez during the entire thing. And then out of the rubble comes Bruce Willis with the white tank top on and blood in his hair. He was like, "What the hell is going on?" And the guy in the helicopter is, "Hey, is this 2402 Pacific Coast Highway?" Bruce Willis was just traumatized. He's like, "No, this is 2800 Pacific Coast Highway. You're looking for the guy that's 3 blocks up north."
That sounds so bad. That sounds so bad.
Oh, we thought it was great.
Oh, it could be good.
Okay, I've got one more story to tell you.
Okay.
Which is sometime in the fall of 1997, maybe in the spring of 1998, whenever it was just after Die Hard.
That would have been The Vengeance?
Die Hard 3. Die Hard with a Vengeance, when he's in New York with Samuel L. Jackson. And I think it was out, and I was trying to convince you to go, and you're like, "I'm not seeing that. I don't want to see it this weekend," or whatever it was.
Right.
I'm like, so my comment was, I'll never forget this. It's got Bruce Willis in it.
Yeah.
The guy does not make a bad movie. The last syllable, like I was not even finished formulating the pronunciation of the last word in that sentence before you said, "Striking distance!"
That's a bad movie.
I could not even. Striking distance. That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, I couldn't remember. He was in Billy Bathgate too. But that's a famously bad movie in which he plays a character named
Tom Hardy.
Yes.
That had Sarah Jessica Parker in it, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah, in a Baywatch bathing suit, somewhat, if I remember.
Yes.
It's about all I can remember now at this point in that.
That's all you should remember.
That's probably fair.
The big one, 1994, Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Tarantino's Palme d'Or.
Right, and there's nothing to be said about that. And then North.
Pass.
Which is about the polar opposite.
I saw that in the theater. It was so bad, and then we were pissed off because there was another friend I was in there with. Mm-hmm. He was talking to his friend the entire movie because the movie was so fucking bad.
Was that a Rob Reiner flick?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then Color of Night.
Yeah, the famous dick shot.
Yeah, I remember that.
I didn't like that film either. And then, of course, everybody was talking about his dick being in the tub scene. And I never, surely on a screen that big, I would have seen it. And I don't think I ever have.
Yeah, it's not one of those. I remember the movie existing. I remember that controversy and, oh, my gosh, but...
Yeah. Nobody's Fool.
Yeah, Paul Newman flick.
Yeah. I don't even remember him in that.
I think he was maybe Paul Newman's daughter's husband or something like that. Maybe. I think it was a cameo almost to a certain degree.
His daughter-in-law was Melanie Griffith. I thought his son was Dylan Walsh.
I may be misremembering. I may be totally wrong.
I thought it was Nobody's Fool.
You're probably right.
Die Hard with a Vengeance. Great flick.
Yeah, it bounced back well because Die Hard 2 was boy, that's a troubling flick.
Did you listen to the rewatchables?
Oh, yeah. It is a troubling flick. I haven't seen it in, it's been many, many, many years. I have pretty strong memory about Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 2. Because Die Hard 1, as I said, was pretty universally beloved. I even took my mom, and my mom is pretty much not a fan of most movies and has a real problem with ultra-violent movies. Mm-hmm. And Die Hard is like, yeah, she got on board with that because it was so well done.
Yeah.
And so we went to go see Die Hard 2, I think pretty much the weekend came out, and I think she was in tears because it was such a hyper-violent, over-the-top. That's a pretty mean movie.
It is. I love it.
I haven't seen it in so long, I don't even know if I've got an opinion on it. I just remember the icicle in the eye and the plane with 250 passengers. And
yeah, well, the rewatchables that was on it, again, hitting that category from another podcast.
Right.
Bill Simmons spends an enormous amount of time on the picking nits, and all of those are absolutely correct.
Oh, yeah.
A plane of 200-something people just crashes and dies.
And then they move on.
And next scene, it's like, so what's else going on?
It's a very unusual choice, even in the time it was. And then in retrospect, if you watch it now, and I have not seen it in close to the now, because I really don't have a whole lot of interest in revisiting, to be honest with you.
Oh, you got to see it again.
Oh, I don't doubt it. It's just not what I don't have a whole lot of interest in revisiting Die Hard with a Vengeance, which I feel is a significantly superior film.
Oh, yeah. I would say so. I mean, I think my biggest hang-up on it, even watching it now, is like, could you have fucking cast someone else as the police captain? Like Dennis Franz. I think he was born in a blue polyester shirt with black pockets.
Right.
Just seen him in that role so much. Hill Street Blues.
He has got a type.
So.
And then Four Rooms.
Four Rooms, same year.
Boy, that was a tremendously flawed exercise.
So he's in the last Four Rooms is a vignette. Mm-hmm. So there's 4 rooms, 4 stories, anthologies, and
because you had Rodriguez, Tarantino.
I can't remember the other
Allison
two.
Anders, I think.
I think so.
And I don't remember. It wasn't Baumbach.
Tarantino directed the last.
He did the last one. The only one that I thought had any degree of success.
It was them in the room. Okay, so I'm watching. Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
This sounds familiar. Go on.
It's a rerun. I think it was 1962, 1963. Mm-hmm. Starred Steve McQueen.
It sounds very familiar. Like I've seen it.
Yeah.
But it's basically the same type of story, if I remember right.
It is, yeah. Steve McQueen meets Fritz Lang, of all people, in a bar. Okay. He's hitting on a girl, and Fritz Lang walks up, and I have a proposition for you. Mm-hmm. And the proposition is, and it wasn't a lighter. It was, I think it was a lighter, but it wasn't a Zippo.
Okay.
And, you light it, and then the first time it fails, I take a finger off. And he decides ultimately not to do it because Fritz Lang's wife comes in and puts a stop to the madness. And she says, what did he promise you? Mm-hmm. She asked, what did he promise you if you do this? He says, like a new Cadillac or something. She's like, no, all the Cadillacs are mine. She picks up her She picks up her purse to walk out, and like 3 of her fingers are gone.
Yeah, I have seen that. So
Yeah.
But it's a pretty flawed exercise. I'm glad they did it, especially at the time, because that was really when the independent cinema, directors were starting to get a lot of clout. Much like the new Hollywood of the '70s, and they had their failures and they had their exciting, but they're all interesting exercises. And I thought that one was, although it just didn't work all that well. It worked tremendously well.
The '90s did manage to spread some cash around.
Oh yeah.
The indie directors, which the same year, 12 Monkeys,
which was
brilliant.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it's one of the few Gilliam movies that I really don't have any significant flaws with, or significant problems with, is a better way to put it. I mean, all of his films are they're polarizing.
Yes, they are.
From a style and content perspective.
Well, he's a polarizing person.
Oh, absolutely. He lives to, or he directs his job is to largely be polarizing, and sometimes successfully. And 12 Monkeys, though, was just an exquisitely well put together time travel story.
My favorite quote from Terry Gilliam, and I don't want to get political here.
That's okay.
But my favorite quote from Terry Gilliam was, "Amber Heard has proved me wrong. She's a brilliant actress." 1996, Last Man Standing.
That is a fucking awesome Walter Hill shoot 'em up.
And it's a remake.
Yojimbo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one's, I really dug that flick.
Well, I saw it on, I think, HBO or something at the time, and I didn't think anything of it. But I hadn't seen Yojimbo.
Mm-hmm.
So many years later, I'd seen Yojimbo, and then I saw it again. And within the first minute of the credit sequence, when he spins the bottle and it says, "Go this way."
Right.
Then instantly, I'm like, oh, this is Yojimbo.
See, I saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
And it had a sound mix in the theater that, I recall this pretty specifically, it being somewhat similar to Heat, where the gunshots were so loud and so visceral that it really changed the dynamic.
Heat was fucking loud.
So I think that's part of the reason why I've always had a fondness for it. Was I remember that pretty specifically, that the theater I was at, or the mix, or both, were so well done that, it was explosive. And then you had Christopher Walken acting like a freak, which is always good for a couple chuckles.
Sound mixes can do that to film. They can make and break films.
Absolutely. There's a huge difference at the home viewing experience, whether you're watching it through a TV or a surround sound. And once you hear it the one time, it's hard to go back. Well, it does impact the viewing experience, as you said.
Like you said in Heat, I remember I'd seen Heat in a 6-screen Lowe's theater in the Bay Area, and it was fucking loud.
Oh yeah, that was deafening.
As we were leaving the theater, it was playing in another screen, and it was during the downtown fight scene, and you could hear it all throughout the hall, all throughout the theater and the hallway and the lobby. And I remember passing the ticket guy on the way out the front door. It was like, damn, man, that is loud. He's like, all fucking day long, Heat, all day long.
That's all I hear.
It's all I hear. If one theater isn't playing the gunfight, the other theater is. Right?
So is it between that and the opening truck heist?
Yeah, that was loud too.
Oh, it was exceptionally loud.
The double tap to the chest.
He had to get it on.
So to get it on, man. So the other thing that relates to that, and to another digression off of the Bruce Willis thing, but I saw this interview with Warren Beatty, and I don't even remember what disc it was on, but he was talking about Shane. Shane.
Okay.
Yeah, with
Alan
Ladd. Yeah. When he watched it when he was young, and he was just blown away by it. And the gunshots were just loud as hell. And he tracked down the guy who recorded the sound in the mid-'60s when Warren Beatty became a producer, and he was putting together Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay.
And so he said, "I want the same gunshots. What did you do for Shane?" And he was talking about, we went out to Joshua Tree National Park, and we took some trash cans out in a canyon, and we took some cannons, some old cannons that we had found at some other national park. They're always trying to. They tracked them down. It took a lot of effort, and they were setting the cannons off inside the trash cans, and they were recording the reverb off of it. And Warren Beatty was just amazed. He thought it was genius. Mm-hmm. So he effectively did the same thing
for Bonnie and Clyde.
And I just watched Bonnie and Clyde a couple of weeks ago, and I don't particularly like that movie.
Yeah, I did see your review. I was kind of surprised that you were not enthusiastic about it.
Right. And I remember being more enthusiastic about it 20 years ago.
Now, I have not seen it in 24 years.
Yeah.
So.
But, things change.
They absolutely do.
So, but the sound on it was great. It was just great. So Beatty was talking about how they premiered it in New York, and he sat in the first screening on the premiere day, and it sounded like shit. And the gunfire starts up, and he's like, something is wrong. So he went up to the projectionist, and apparently he had even typed notes himself about how to screen Bonnie and Clyde.
Which got summarily ignored, I presume.
Oh, you bet. And he was talking to the projectionist, who back then was also the sound guy, because the track for the sound is on the celluloid, which is read through a separate mechanism to funnel out to the system inside the theater. And he said, man, the sound downstairs doesn't sound right. And the sound guy instantly was like, this sound on this track is shit. This is the worst soundtrack I have ever had since Shane. But don't worry, I fixed it.
Well, thank you, good sir.
Yeah. Warren Beatty was a little bit upset. All right, so back to...
And then he goes into Beavis and Butthead to America, which like I was saying before the cast started, I don't remember him in it.
Yeah, he played the guy who was trying to put a hit out on his wife, who was played by Demi Moore.
Oh, yeah.
And they had the famous scene of he thought that Beavis and Butthead were hitmen.
I do remember that.
So he said, yeah, I want you to do my wife. and Beavis was like, yeah, I'll do your wife. Horrible movie.
What, Beavis and Butthead to America?
Yeah, I was not impressed.
Oh.
I watched a lot of Beavis and Butthead on MTV.
I didn't like it as much as I was hoping to, but I did enjoy it.
I took my future wife to that, and she still decided to marry me after we went to it.
Yeah, I'm assuming it took a lot of damage.
My favorite scene was him waving his hand in front of the automatic urinal and it flushing by itself.
I need to watch that again.
That was 6 hours of entertainment for those two fuck-ups. Fifth Element.
One of the more batshit movies ever made.
Other than...
Is it good?
It's good.
Is it?
It's good. I
find this movie fascinating to watch. And my wife loves it.
Yeah.
But I still don't even know if I like it or not.
I don't like Ruby Rod.
No, that's an incredibly grating character.
Yeah. But other than that, I like the movie.
It's so great. Every time I see it, I walk away just completely baffled. Not necessarily because I don't understand it, but it's hard to imagine how Luc Besson dreamed it up and made it, because if nothing else, it's inventive as all get out. I mean, I don't particularly care for the whole segment with the opera singer, which I know is one of those where it's like, what? That's one of the top parts of it. It's just not my bag, baby. And
I think it'd be more digestible without Ruby Watt. I think everything would be more digestible without.
Probably, but I mean, it's very strange because like Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman never even share a scene together.
Yeah.
The whole movie is, I need to watch it again. It's just bonkers. I see it about once every 4 years.
And Luke 90210 is in the beginning. Can't remember.
Yeah, Luke Perry.
Luke Perry, yeah.
Yeah, and that whole segment is, to a certain degree, is like, I don't even understand why this part of the movie exists.
He's like...
It does make sense. I mean, it plays in the plot, but at the same time, it's like, this didn't have to be here. Yeah. I'm glad it's there, but it's a very strange movie.
Well, I mean, it served as a very effective vehicle to introduce Milla Jovovich to the world, who
yes,
was basically just a supermodel before then. Since then, she's been a very effective cash actress.
Yeah, she can kill the hell out of zombies.
Yeah.
The Jackal remake.
That was fucking horrible.
That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad.
It was horrible.
Mercury Rising.
And one of the worst things about watching The Jackal,
it was Jack Black.
No, there was that scene where Bruce Willis goes to a gay bar to pick up a guy, and then just to use him as cover because he needs some place to stay. So he goes to a gay bar because those guys are closeted and hiding, so no one's going to be looking for him. And he moves in and takes over his house and is using his house as basically a safe house to pull his operations from. And the gay guy goes out for like a business trip or something and comes back and his whole house is trashed, and he just starts immediately like bitching and screaming like, "What are you doing? I can't believe you're doing this to me," and blah, 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 blah. And Willis just picks up a gun and plugs him right there in the living room, and the dude falls. And the whole theater laughed. And I've been thinking about that for 20-something years.
Why?
Well, it's in...
Well, when I hear that, right, there's two ways to interpret this.
Yeah.
In my mind, right? Is like, okay, does that mean that the entire theater, found gay people, morally reprehensible, and the elimination of said character as, not a human, so therefore hilarious? Or is it the other side where there's a parallel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, where you have a dynamic show of force and fury and everything else that's immediately silenced, which is just, it can be horrifying or hilarious. So I don't know.
No, that's a good point. There's also a redo of that certain type of situation in that horrible film, No Escape. With Ray Liotta.
I know that flick, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, and he's deserted on an island for reasons I'm not going to go into, and they put him into
Escape
this.
From New York, essentially, isn't it?
Yes,
to a certain degree.
To a certain degree, yeah, and they immediately throw him into this like gladiatorial match, and there's this big fucking hulk of a man, and immediately in the theater,
like an Escape from New York.
Yeah, they're in a ring. Yeah, but that fight goes on for like 3.5 minutes or something. But that's true. That's true. But I was preparing myself for like a 5-minute fight scene, and then Liotta just kills the guy in one stroke, and it reminded me like, oh well, that's the indie thing,
right?
Just pulls the gun out and shoot him. I didn't particularly see that in the Jackal, although you could be right.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those. I haven't seen it, since I rented on video maybe 2 years after it was out. So my memory of it is not very much. The only thing I remember is Jack Black's arm getting blown off, really.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing I recall from it, and going, oh, yeah, Richard Gere's in this. I forgot I don't like Richard Gere.
Doing an Irish accent.
Yeah, I've never.
Yeah, which I didn't care for. And he was a little overweight at the time, and he was known for being, American Gigolo. And for him to be in any movie overweight was just very strange. But then, of course, there in that particular scene that I referenced earlier,
right?
It's like either you're laughing at the gay guy getting plugged, or you're recalling like a domestic situation. Like, wouldn't it be nice to just silence that domestic partner of yours if they're just going off? And I think either one of those or a combination of both is what everybody was laughing at. And it just made me feel like extraordinarily uncomfortable.
Gotcha.
But the real reason why I went to go see The Jackal is the real reason that nobody wants to talk about, which is the plot of The Jackal.
Oh, yes, there is one, is there?
Which is the Jackal is hired to assassinate the First Lady of the United States.
See, I don't even remember that very important detail.
That is the plot of the movie, which at the time, First Lady of the United States was Hillary Clinton, and so there was a groundswell of people who probably would not have minded if the Jackal were around taking out someone of that nature, which was very... All I'm saying is, just because you can make something, including a remake of a great film like The Day of the Jackal, doesn't mean you should make something. It's kind of like Don Simpson's entire career.
We shall not speak ill of Don Simpson. Don't cross that line.
Okay.
But I don't remember there being a lot of fans of Nancy Reagan. And, of course, I don't remember a movie about wanted to assassinate Nancy Reagan. But, of course, then again, I don't remember the plot of The Jackal being about...
Nancy Reagan was getting a lot of shit when she was first lady.
She was. But it's just one of those that...
Like I said, I don't remember the plot
Barbara
of the movie.
Bush got a lot of shit when she was first lady.
Although that was just baffling. It's like, I don't understand why, just because she looks much older than her...
husband, and she wore like traditional, like old style 50s dresses and pearls, and like that was wow. Okay,
yeah, okay. Mercury Rising.
I saw that.
I don't even know if I saw that.
Him trying to take care of the autistic kid.
Yeah, there was something. Maybe I did see it. Maybe on HBO.
Codebreaker.
Something similar. Armageddon.
I
suspect you and I have very different interpretations of how good he was in that.
Because I do think that, objectively, he did a fantastic job in Armageddon.
Pass.
I think it's worth watching it just to pay attention to him. Because I think that, if people have a problem with Armageddon, I mean, they're obviously killjoys, but they probably have some good points. But I do think that he actually had a fairly effective performance as a father.
Oh, I'm not going to argue that, and like a lot of his films, even the ones that you don't care for, he pulls in a really good performance. Right. And Bruce Willis is one of these people who does have seems to be. I know that there have been a lot of problems in the early 2000s and 2010s. A lot of people who have worked with him said that he's turned into a bit of a dick.
In the ass.
But at this time, I remember in a lot of interviews, like, "Hey, I'm getting paid fucking $10 million for this. I'm gonna give it 110%." The Siege.
I remember that being a reasonably good movie, and him being a very small part of it.
I think
that's what Denzel and Annette Bening,
and
terrorist attack in New York.
Yeah,
obviously a few years
Tony
before.
Shalhoub. Yeah, it was before 9/11. I don't know if you could make that movie now. I think
you could certainly make it, just not the same way.
Yeah, it's
Edward Zick film.
Yeah, Breakfast of Champions, which he shot in that town in Idaho, Montana. I think it was Idaho.
Maybe. Man, that doesn't even look familiar. I didn't know that. Yeah, that doesn't even... I mean, you were referencing it earlier, and I'm just...
Yeah, well, there was a podcast that again, I think it was The Plot Thickens had put out. Mm-hmm. I think it was called... I think the name of the town was Daly. So the name of the podcast was Dailywood. And it was about he and Demi Moore purchased a ranch out there that was one of the largest ranches in all of Idaho, and just as they spent more and more time out there, it was Bruce bought a bar, then Bruce bought a movie theater, and then Bruce bought a shopping center, and he just started having more and more influence on the town, which initially everyone was like, "Oh, this is great," and then it just very quickly turned into fucking serious. Like I got to have an argument with Bruce Willis for water rights, and it just was. He bugged out about 15, 20 years ago, but it was not a positive experience by everybody on board.
Gotcha.
The Sixth Sense was a landmark movie.
Yeah, that was that the last movie where nobody knew the ending? It's got to be pretty close, right? That's right before the internet was in everybody's house.
Right. That makes sense.
And I do think it was one of those. It's probably... I'm sure I'm mistaken, but I can't remember the last twist ending of a movie
in which you were truly surprised.
Well, truly surprised, or it wasn't in, if you didn't see... There movies now, if you don't see it opening weekend, you're finding out what happened, no matter how hard you try to stay away from it. Although I've been successful with the Doctor Strange movie, I don't know what happens in that.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking,
there's a twist in the beginning of Doctor Strange.
Okay.
And it kind of reminds me of the
Janet
twist.
Leigh dies?
A what?
I said Janet Leigh dies?
Janet Leigh dies. Oh, sorry.
Twist at the beginning, sorry.
I didn't catch that, yeah. Well, it reminds me of it, and I don't want to tell you what the movie is, because then it'll clue you into the switch that's at the beginning of Doctor Strange. But I can't remember the last time I sat in a movie and then something happened at the end and was like, oh, it's like that. And, the famous one that everybody talks about is The Usual Suspects, which back then people were like, you've got to go see this movie because it has a twist ending. It's a great twist ending, and people would go. People would see it. Right.
That would be the attraction.
That would be the attraction of it. That would be the pull. It was kind of the same thing with Seven. Like, you got to see the ending of Seven.
Right.
And they weren't necessarily talking about the box. They were talking about Kevin Spacey showing up as spoilers.
Yeah. As a really weird dude he was effective at that, as it turns out.
Oh, yeah. And I met someone just recently who said they didn't have a problem with what he's been canceled for. Which, entirely off-topic discussion anyway. So,
he doesn't have a problem with him being canceled, or he didn't have a problem with his behavior?
Didn't really have a problem with his behavior because it was not pedophilia. I remember in some reporting that there were some minors involved.
I literally don't...
We're not experts on the Super 70 podcast. We just talk about movies. The Story of Us, did you ever see that?
No. I have not.
I remember it was very well praised at the time.
All I remember was Bruce Willis and Michelle Pfeiffer. And remember seeing and saying, I just don't have a whole lot of interest, and I'll pass, because he's not blowing anything up.
Well, I remember liking The Whole 9 Yards.
I remember liking that. I mean, I remember thinking, boy, this is pretty dumb, but I inexplicably enjoy it. Of course, it had Amanda Peet, and,
Oh, this is when she's, like, nude for, like, 5 straight minutes of screen time or something.
Yeah, it was a bit much, but I was okay with it.
But that was also, like, it was supposed to play on the audience. Like, the audience was supposed to, like, Jesus Christ, when's she going to put a shirt on?
Right. And the answer is, it'll be for a while.
Right. So, I mean, I like that kind of fourth wall breaking. So there's this, not to go back to another Bruce Willis movie in which he has a cameo, The Loaded Weapon 1.
Okay.
So instead of Patsy Kinsett, there's Kathy Ireland.
Okay.
And Kathy Ireland is kind of in this, actually, she's in sort of a Sharon Stone role. So they have her in the interrogation room, and there's all these jokes with the leg. They actually got a lot of the guys who were in the scene from Basic Instinct. They're actually playing their exact same roles in this.
They were available.
Recreated scene, of course, including Newman from Seinfeld.
That's right, it was
right.
Newman.
And so Kathy Ireland's going back and forth, and her legs going up and down, and just the way the camera plays left to right, it's actually quite brilliant. It's actually very, if you know Basic Instinct, it's a very good scene. So the real funny part actually is after that scene, there are, I think, 3 panty shots of Kathy Ireland in which she is deliberately playing with your eyes, and in that sense they're breaking the fourth wall.
Right.
Where she moves the leg real quick, and you're like, "Oh, that's our panties." And I just thought that, I mean, yes, it's objective or objectifying, but at the same time, it's Ireland and the director are playing with your
expectations or your desires, or
and that's why it was funny.
Gotcha.
And so there was so in that way, Loaded Weapon 1 wasn't just a stupid movie. It actually had a component that was playing with the audience, much like Naked Gun was. I just saw Hot Shots last night, and I can't say that Hot Shots had that same level of
I haven't seen that
entertainment to it. Right.
But it did have Estevez's brother.
Yes, Carlos was in it. Sorry. Carlos Estevez. So, The Whole 9 Yards actually had a sequel, The Whole 10 Yards.
Yes.
Which was not
very good.
Yeah.
The Kid. What is The Kid?
I didn't see The Kid either, and I know nothing other than the cover art of the VHS cassette that I never rented.
I don't even know that.
Unbreakable. That continues his long tradition of working with M. Night Shyamalan.
Yep.
I thought Unbreakable was good. I thought that it was a movie that needed a lot of patience, and I think that the audience just didn't want patience. I think the audience really wanted something that was like The Sixth Sense, and when it came up short, the audience was cruel.
But it's really well regarded.
I think that it is.
At least the fans that it has, they're fans. And I hate to say this, I've never seen Unbreakable.
It's good.
I've heard this. I've just,
yeah.
For whatever reason, I've just never seen it.
Yeah, but again, it's just not. It's one of those films that's just not for everybody. And that's how I feel about Shyamalan. He's not for everybody. Despite the fact that Sixth Sense was just this universally loved movie, mm-hmm. I think that his films since then have just been very niche.
Yeah. I've not seen many of his films beyond Sixth Sense. And most of them just because I just didn't see the appeal to me personally.
Yeah.
Although I heard Old was pretty good.
Yeah, I heard that was pretty good. I like The Village. I like Signs.
Signs was pretty good. Yeah. Signs was good. I liked Signs.
Yeah, with Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix was in Village, too. With Sigourney Weaver and William Hurt. Like, it had this just amazing cast. And I think Dallas Bryce Howard was in it.
That sounds right.
Regardless. So, Bandits. This is not a good movie.
That's with Billy Bob Thornton and Cate Blanchett, right?
Yes. And then they're in a polyamorous relationship.
Well, of course.
Yes. So now you've got just, oh my God. So have you seen Heart's War?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's with Colin Farrell.
That is worth your time.
I've heard. I mean, I remember you were quite the fan of it.
Yeah, I just watched that like 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it's still good. I am, as I'm sure my audience knows, I am a World War II nut. I know a lot about the war. I read a lot of books about the war. Spend an inordinate amount of time on my podcast listening about the war. And I thought this was a very good film about aspects of America at war that normally are not touched on in film or book. And this has Terrence Howard in it. Mm-hmm. Like you said, Colin Farrell. And I think it's worth a lot of people's times. Grand Champion did not see. Crocodile Hunter Collision Course did not see.
Well, he's a producer on that.
Tears of the Sun was fucking everywhere.
That was...
Tell me it was good.
I can't tell you it was good. Did you like it?
I didn't see it, but it was just everywhere. It was on every time you walked in a Hollywood Video, every time you turned on a TV, every time you saw an ad.
And I never saw it.
It's on Netflix forever.
And which is unfortunate because I do like the director.
Who's the director?
Oh, it's gosh, what did he do? I think he did Training Day.
Anton Fuqua?
Yeah, I believe that's who it was, actually.
He's a great director.
Yeah, no, I'm generally a fan of his stuff, but I just never saw it. But I remember hearing...
Except for that fucking King Arthur movie you did.
Well, that doesn't work unless you're John Borman.
Haha.
Seriously, I think that movie's phenomenal.
Okay. We're going to pass Red Rocks Go Wild.
Yeah, never.
I don't remember him in Full Throttle either.
I don't either.
Yeah. The whole 10 yards, like we were saying.
Not good.
Ocean's 12.
Terrible.
You had a big problem with it.
Yeah, I've got a real problem with Ocean's 12. Ocean's 11 is tremendous entertainment. It really is. And I thought that Ocean's 12 was the polar opposite of that. I found that a chore to get through, insufferable, and like an in-joke where the only people who are laughing at the people
participating
in it. To a certain degree, it was sort of like the Oscars. It was a self-congratulatory, masturbatory exercise that didn't do anybody any good. Now, Ocean's 13 was pretty entertaining. I like that one too. But Ocean's 11 was awesome. 12 was I didn't like that. I usually like Soderbergh stuff, but that one I didn't have any use for.
Yeah, I like
12. I may be on an island. I agree. It's definitely. I may have just had a bad day when I saw it.
Hostage?
I don't know that.
I saw that. He's like a sheriff in a small town. Hilarity in Sin City. I saw that.
I don't even know if I like that movie. It's definitely an interesting movie, and I'm glad they made it. It's sort of like Four Rooms, where it's an exercise that I'm glad happened.
The visuals were incredibly stunning.
Yes.
And actually, one of the problems that I had with the visuals was I felt like there was something to decode. Like I felt like there was a pattern that he was following that was up to the viewer to figure out. Mm-hmm. And particularly when you saw Mickey Rourke with the bandages on his face and how that was white and he was black and there was a background that was white and a doorway that was black. I thought there was going to be a pattern that was following, and there was no pattern.
No.
So I was increasingly confused by the film. But I did, years later, read the comic that it's based on. And I have to tell you that it is shockingly like the comic.
It almost had to be. I never read it, but
page for page.
Yeah, it's,
almost.
That's a Frank Miller thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I didn't particularly care for the comic, but I think that if I'd seen the comic and then went to see the movie, I think I would enjoy the movie more, yeah. Lucky Number 11. Talk about twist endings. I cannot believe you have not seen this movie.
I'm looking here at 2006, and he was in 8 movies in 2006.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't see...
Alpha Dog.
I didn't see a single one of these things.
Lucky Number 11, 16 Blocks, Over the Hedge, Fast Food Nation. I didn't see that. Astronaut Farmer, didn't see that. Hammy's Boomerang Adventure.
Nah.
The Hip Hop Project. Okay, so I saw half of these. Alpha Dog I remember because that's when I think Olivia Wilde is in that one. And it was instantly like, who is her?
Yeah,
who is she?
She pretty.
Yeah. And I think that's got Ryan Gosling and JT in it.
It's got Justin Timberlake, yeah.
Yeah. Lucky Number 11 is worth your time, my friend.
I've heard this. I remember maybe you've told me that in the past, and I haven't. I know it's got Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, in a very brilliant role. I think he does very good in this. And then 16 Blocks.
I think maybe I have seen. That's with the Most Def.
Yeah.
And it reminded me. Maybe I did see that because it reminded me of The Gauntlet.
Yes.
I think maybe I did see that.
It's a similar concept, yeah. Not a remake, but...
No, but just kind of the same general concept.
Send somebody to fail. No, I really enjoyed 16 Blocks, and it was almost like if John McClane had stayed in New York and had just gone downhill, it's like he would be that character.
Gotcha. But
Perfect Stranger. I've never... Planet Terror, of course. Great film.
That is such a weird flick.
Do you prefer Planet Terror or Death Proof?
Death Proof.
Okay.
I mean, Rodriguez, for me, I have a hard time thinking of anything of his that I unabashedly liked after Desperado, I think. But Planet Terror was one of his better ones that I recall.
I love Planet Terror. Josh Brolin kills in that movie.
Yeah.
Live Free or Die Hard. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Timothy the Elephant, and it's still terrible.
I really enjoyed it.
See, I think, am I remembering right? But weren't all the gunshot wounds CGI in that movie?
I don't know.
I think they might have been.
So they forgot a few, or
no? It's just there's been a movement over the past 20 years of action movies, right? Where they go away from squibs. You don't see.
Oh yeah.
And I can tell it's different for me. And I remember if I'm recalling correctly, which I very well may not be, but I think I am, was that this was one of the ones where I really noticed it, where it was like, okay, we don't have squibs, we're going to be doing CGI added gunshot wounds, and it's just.
Well, it makes sense for the latter.
Was it PG-13 too?
Oh, I
think
don't know.
It might have been.
I don't remember anything crazy objectionable in that. It might have been.
Which is just, it's a PG-13 flick.
Die Hard should not be PG-13.
Correct.
Ever. I mean,
it's not an adult movie because it's definitely a teenager movie, but it's an R-rated flick. It always should be. Yeah, I remember being just very disappointed. Although I remember, Susie Q, that was her name. It's like, well, that's an interesting person. Sorry. But yeah, I didn't like that flick.
I didn't see most of these. Nancy Drew, Assassination of a High School President, What Just Happened. But I did see Surrogates. That he did with what's that girl's name from the Fincher film, Gone Girl?
Rosamund Pike?
Yes, she's in this.
Is she? Okay.
This is actually a very relevant film that I think most people have not seen. I remember my wife and I seeing this in the theater going, why isn't everyone seeing this movie?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about how people in the future who have enough money and are privileged enough can actually have a robotic avatar go out and do their job for them.
That sounds appealing.
So in her case, she, I believe that she was physically disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had this avatar go out. And in his case, he was a cop. So it was just safer for him to go out. But it was just, it was a very bizarre situation where their avatars actually look like plastic versions of themselves.
Okay.
And it was a very neat trick that, I don't know, the makeup, like, it was obviously Bruce Willis as his avatar,
mm-hmm.
right? But he looked different than when he did, because effectively he never left the house. He went into a machine in his house, and his avatar left the house. So it was, I don't think that the wealthy would ever do such a thing, because they, particularly now, where the wealthy are constantly on social media every time they leave their house, or every time, right? They would never let someone else stand in for them.
Well, no, you don't want to lose that.
But we do use avatars in our daily lives now.
We do?
We do. Well, yeah, like people use different photos on social media, or they play video games with avatars, or they have aliases.
I guess you're right. It's since it's just a little bit different for me. I'm not on.
Right.
I don't use. Any
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, but I'm never on it.
Well, I mean,
even on this podcast, I don't go by a different name.
Right.
Cop Out. I'll be interested in your thoughts on this. I've not seen Cop Out. And
I think we talked about this in another podcast.
We might have, but there's a legitimate possibility I wasn't drinking Dr. Pepper at the time.
Okay. Well, I mean, Cop Out was a script that was running around Hollywood. It was on the famous blacklist,
mm-hmm.
the top 10 scripts that everybody in Hollywood thought, these are the greatest, most valuable scripts that someone's got to make, because they're going to make a lot of money. And Bruce Willis attached himself to it. It was called A Couple of Dicks, which everyone said this will never pass the developmental stage. We'll never market it as A Couple of Dicks. But,
right.
And then, of course, the female co-star in it, I can't remember her name, but when she attached herself to the project, Variety magazine ran her name in the title, which is "This co-star likes a couple of dicks," which I just thought was
that's so stupid.
It's really stupid and really sexist. But you wouldn't do that with a male co-star. But of course, Kevin Smith eventually got this film. And Kevin Smith said, I would have no problem with my name in that title,
mm-hmm.
but, I am not mine.
Kevin Smith likes a couple of dicks.
Well, he would be the first to tell you that that's true. So...
But I've not seen it. I've seen the Kevin Smith stories about it.
Yeah, where famously, this is the film where Willis turned into, like, some great asshole
mm-hmm.
that was just unbearable to be with on set, and Smith said it was as the filming went on, it was just more and more impossible to direct him in certain scenes, and he would not do coverage if he didn't think the coverage was necessary, and then he wouldn't sit with his fellow actors trying to help them through the scene, and it was basically don't fucking bother me until I'm ready, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Smith's been ad nauseum about it on his many, many podcasts talking about this particular situation, but he has also said... Yeah, he's going to podcast, Smodcast. But he's also has said in the past few years that Willis actually has tried to reach out to him for various personal reasons
mm-hmm.
To reconnect. And ultimately those reconnections were unsuccessful. But apparently Willis was completely unaware that there was all of this material in the public domain about what an asshole that he was, because Smith said if he knew that, then why would he? If he knew that I was calling him an asshole for 6 years, why would he be trying to contact me to?
I don't know. Sometimes people do have, get a conscience.
Yes.
And say, man, I'm sorry, I act like a jerkweed.
Possible.
I don't do it, but, I've heard of people doing such things.
People do such things.
The Expendables.
Yeah.
Man, that's... Boy, the Expendables.
So, the Expendables 2 and Expendables 3. Expendables 3, he was not in.
No.
Because he wanted
too much money.
$3 million for 3 days of work.
Mm-hmm.
And Stallone said no. And then Stallone turned around and hired Harrison Ford for like $250,000. And the only stipulation was Harrison Ford had to fly a helicopter in the film. And Stallone was like, sold! I get a pilot and I get Harrison Ford.
I thought Red was... That was entertaining.
Another comic book movie.
Oh, that was?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
And I thought it was good. What's her fame was in it from Weeds?
Yeah. Mary Louise Parker?
Yeah. I used to, when she was younger, used to just run away from her. I just did not care for her acting at all.
Okay.
I think maybe because of Fried Green Tomatoes and the movie The Client that she was in with Susan Sarandon, the John Grissom movie. And didn't care for it at all. But Red I liked quite a bit.
I remember walking away saying that was way entertaining, and Malkovich was top-notch.
Malkovich was top-notch, but the first, second, and third reason I go see Red or Red 2 is Helen Mirren.
Mm-hmm. She has still got it.
Set Up. Never saw it.
Direct-to-video.
Catch 44.
Well, I think now is almost to the point where we're getting to, it's like, okay, I've never even heard of these a lot of.
Yeah, I haven't. The Black Mamba.
It's a short film.
Look how many movies he does in 2012. Lay the Favorite, The Cold Light of Day, Moonrise Kingdom, Expendables 2, Looper, Fire with Fire. Now,
two of these
are
excellent.
Are unbelievable showstoppers. Moonrise Kingdom and Looper. I just saw Moonrise Kingdom for the first time this year.
Mm-hmm.
I was floored, and I thought Willis's performance in it was...
And it's one of those that... Why... we were going through the whole list there, and there's 8,000 movies.
Yeah.
And he did have a period there where he was trying to attach himself with good directors. He was never like Tom Cruise trying to, catch on with excellent directors, but he was fairly consistent. And then, all of a sudden he rebounds with that, where he is with, Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
It's just, he should have done it more often, unfortunately.
I think that he would have been more satisfied. Perhaps he was balancing that with the need that a lot of these people have, where the standard of living just got way too high.
Very plausible. There were, 5, 6 movies there in that single year?
Yeah. You look, this is, I don't know if this is equitable or not. People might be criticized for this, but you look at Johnny Depp's situation.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Depp was pulling in like $60 million a year, and then now he's pulling in like $3 million a year. And, maybe you should have planned better. I think that's always a criticism when you're making that much mega money,
Right.
I get it. But that's a real situation that a lot of people are in.
Oh, for sure.
He's making $30,000 a year, and then all of a sudden you're punching a card at
even
Target.
if he just wanted to make that much money, I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yeah,
it's just unfortunate from the art standpoint, if you will, that he was not so vigilant, or maybe they just didn't want to hire him.
Yeah,
seems
or maybe
unlikely,
it wasn't right for that role at that time. Yeah. Now, all those things could be true. I never saw Fire with Fire.
Nope.
I did see A Good Day to Die Hard.
I did not see that. That's the only Die Hard I've passed on.
I actually, that might be more relevant now. That's about how corrupt Russian society is. So, it is an action film. It is a Die Hard film in Russia, and so a lot of people are like, come the fuck on. Die Hard's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but, I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. These fucking G.I. Joe films.
Boy, they're rough.
I didn't see Snake Eyes. Did you see Snake Eyes?
I did not see Snake Eyes.
I had people tell me that was the only one.
The only one we're seeing?
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't see it, and I've never met anybody who said that, but I believe you.
Sean Fennessy said that.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Yeah, sometimes I have disagreements with Sean Fennessy.
So, I'm going to have to try it. I can't get away with it. It just seems like they have a very successful marketing campaign. I love G.I. Joe comics. Since I was a kid, I was into G.I. Joe, Special Missions.
Oh, I had all the little figures.
Oh, my God, yes.
But I did see G.I. Joe Retaliation, and that was dog shit.
It was. That's the one. Is that the one where the ice falls in the water?
Oh, it might have been. I
only-
just remember suffering. It was probably a 90-minute movie that felt it was 4 hours
Fucking
long.
stupid. And at the same time, it had people like Willis in it, or
I think The
Dennis
Rock was in
Quaid
it.
from Houston, Texas, who played General Hawk. Yeah, it's a lot of good casting. Sienna Miller played the Baroness, which I thought was really good casting. You know, the problem didn't seem to be the casting. The problem seemed to be the script and the execution.
Right. Just the problem was the movie.
Right. I never saw Sin City 2.
No, I didn't either. Probably because I was rather lukewarm about the first one.
The Prince.
Direct video. I don't know.
Yeah. Vice. Rock the Casbah. Extraction. Was that?
That's not the one that was on Netflix.
Okay.
That one was really good.
Precious Card. Now it's like.
Now it's all direct to
the
video.
Marauders. Split. I saw that. That was okay. Once Upon a Time in Venice. First Kill. Acts of Violence. No. The Death Wish remake.
See, I didn't see that.
That was great.
That was an Eli Roth flick, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
That was people will attack that remake for the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, they're wrong.
Okay.
The murder rate in Chicago got fucking crazy, and everybody in the country was making fun of it. Like, yay, you finally passed Detroit, way to go, And Eli Roth made a movie of it and remade Death Wish with Wilson a Sinner. I thought that was a fantastic way to critique what was going on in our country. And there was an open, I feel, this is just my take on it, there was an open, honest discussion about Second Amendment rights. Which you just can't go around just saying.
Well, since I haven't seen it,
you ought to. I'd like your take on it. Reprisal, Airstrike, Glass. That's the.
that's the other.
Shyamalan produced that, I think.
He directed
it.
I just remember people being very mad about it.
Oh! Here's one from 2019, Motherless Brooklyn. This is the one that Edward Norton directed.
I did want to see that, but I did not.
That was good. That was very noir, and that's based on The Pawnbroker. I don't know if you ever read that. Kirby gave that book to me, and it was about this guy, the true story of Robert Moses, who effectively ran New York City with an iron fist over a period of 25 years.
Okay.
Where he was like, you didn't do anything in New York City without him. Like, he ran, I think it was like 6 or 7 departments, like the plumbing and the water and the construction permits and all of that. And one of the things that he did was made sure all the bridges in Manhattan were like 14 feet 9 inches, because the buses needed a clearance of 15 feet 2 inches. So it made sure that all the buses in Manhattan couldn't leave Manhattan. And that was so no one from Harlem could go to Coney Island.
Okay.
Right? They had to take the subway. So then it was like, how do you make the subway so that no one from Harlem can get to Coney Island? It was very much, and it's effectively that character is in Motherless Brooklyn, and he's played by Alec Baldwin, who does a fantastic job on that. You got to see that. All right, 10 Minutes Gone, Trauma Center. Nothing.
Just a whole barrage of direct video.
Survive the Night, Hard Kill. I heard that Hard Kill was good. Breach, but my God, look at 2021. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movies I've never seen, never heard of.
And one of which appeared to have a theatrical release.
Which one was that?
Midnight in the Switchgrass. I'm not familiar with it all.
2022.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Golly geez. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12?
And 5 of them have yet to be released?
Huh.
Six of them have not been released yet. That's a sad end to a fantastic career.
Agreed.
But it's sad what he and his family are going through. So I'm very sorry to hear that. Bruce Willis, ladies and gentlemen. True American movie star. But going through his filmography, let's just say, for example, Die Hard. Where's Dennis Farina?
Oh, in Die Hard, he would definitely be one of, Yeah, Dennis Farina would have been one of the FBI guys.
Oh, of course. No, that makes perfect sense.
One of the Johnsons. No relation.
Okay, so if that's the case, then... Okay, The Last Boy Scout. Where is Dennis Farina?
Oh, he would have been the owner of the football team.
Oh, that's good. I was thinking of like one of the cops who was trying to help Hollenbeck nail the bad guy.
That's fair, too.
Because Dennis Farina famously was a cop in Chicago.
Yes.
Four Rooms. Where's Dennis Farina?
Oh, golly gee almighty.
Couldn't begin to guess. Can you place him anywhere?
He's the cop who comes in the middle of the night to make sure everything is okay.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Or he's the part that Antonio Banderas played, one of the two, because he had a mustache.
Armageddon. Where is Dennis Farina?
Well, he is obviously a general.
He's at NASA,
He's at
right?
NASA, yeah.
He's an administrator at NASA.
Yeah, and he's yelling.
All the time.
Nonstop.
Don't
Actually,
say it.
he
Don't
could've
say it, Sydney. I'll take this telephone and I'll bury it in your fucking head.
I guess he very well could have been Billy Bob Thornton in that. Just a louder version.
In Hart's War, I nominate Dennis Farina for being an officer in the camp who was knocked off before General Hart got there. Colonel Hart.
Question is, was he play in Fifth Element? Is he Ruby Rod?
That would have made a better movie if he were Ruby Rod. I am not a... Is it Rube? Is it Rube?
No, it's Ruby.
Ruby Rod. I will take Dennis Farina over Ruby Rod any day of the week.
So,
Okay, the whole 9 yards. He's a mobster. Come on, man. He's a
He's
mobster.
I just couldn't place which mobster he is. Wasn't he in that movie?
The whole 9 yards?
He should have been if he wasn't.
It'd be funny if he was and we just forgot.
That would be really terrible.
16 blocks. I nominate Dennis Farina for being the judge.
Yeah. Second.
Planet Terror.
He'd be a general.
He's a general. Bruce Willis works for Dennis Farina. In that
That's
movie. Yeah. Surrogates, of course, he would be a cop. In Cop Out, he would be a cop. He'd be the
cop.
police captain who's yelling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The Expendables, he'd have that cameo.
He would.
Right, the Schwarzenegger cameo, like in Expendables 2.
Mm-hmm.
Red, he's like the negotiator. He's like the middleman who's always negotiating XY. Moonrise Kingdom.
I about to say I can't place him in that anywhere, though.
He's a parent of one of the kids.
Grandparent, parent, somewhere in that range.
Grandparent would be good, particularly for this age.
And then in any one of these direct-to-video flicks, he would absolutely positively be a cop.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about Death Wish. He'd be a doctor in Death Wish. Because that's what Paul Kersey, instead of being an architect in the remake, he's a doctor.
Okay.
He's an MD. Well, that is our attempt to appreciate and positively assess one of the most momentous careers in the history of Hollywood. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and if you didn't like this, just turn on Die Hard or Pulp Fiction or Ocean's 12. Just not striking distance. Thanks.
VHS, DVD, Blu-ray? Purchase?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Laserdisc.
Laserdisc?
Big Laserdisc.
Which one was it? Do you remember?
The River movie. Hat.
The one with the hat.
The one with the hat.
Have you ever...
Striking distance.